They thought darkness would destroy you, but instead it bowed before you, because what no one ever dared to tell you is that your light was never fragile. It wasn't born in comfort, or safety, or perfection. It was born inside storms where purity alone could not survive. You didn't come from a garden of peace. You came from a battlefield of silence, where every wound became a sacred initiation. Angels, beings of flawless radiance, look at you with reverence. And something they've never felt before: fear. Because you did what even heaven could not conceive. You walked through the shadows and refused to be devoured by them. You've held the fire in your hands without letting it consume your soul. You've embraced the night not as a curse, but as a teacher. And through that, you became something rare, something that even light cannot define. This is not a story of corruption. This is the unveiling of divine balance, the sacred state where darkness becomes discipline and pain becomes protection. You are proof that God's design is not about staying pure. It's about becoming whole. Every scar on your spirit is a seal of initiation. Every tear you shed was a signature on your divine contract. Stay until the end, because what's coming next will show you why your shadow has always been your guardian, not your enemy. Once you understand this truth, you will never again doubt your power, your purpose, or your place among the divine. If your spirit feels this message vibrating inside, it's not random, it's recognition. Hit that like button to anchor this energy in your life. Subscribe if your soul is awakening to who you truly are. And comment 99 below, because the number 99 is the mark of completion before divine perfection, the moment before ascension. This is your signal that you're almost there. You were not shaped in paradise. You were shaped in collision. In betrayal, silence, rejection, and nights so long that even heaven felt distant. You were the echo that refused to die in the darkness, the fire that kept burning when everything else turned to ash. Every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer, every moment you thought it was over, was never punishment. It was programming, the divine way of forging something that could withstand what ordinary souls could not. You learned that pain isn't your enemy, it's your sculptor. It carved you into something that can carry both mercy and might. It burned away the illusions, the dependency, the weakness. And what remained was essence. Pure, unfiltered essence. You stopped begging for peace and started embodying it. You realized that true serenity isn't the absence of chaos. It's the ability to remain unshaken in the middle of it. You were built in contradiction, and that's your advantage. Where others seek only light and lose themselves in naive purity, you saw that truth exists in contrast. That God hides wisdom in both ends of the spectrum, in the whisper and the thunder, in the silence and the scream. You stopped running from your pain and turned to face it, and when you did, something ancient awoke inside you. That's when you began to speak the language of both realms. You could sense darkness approaching long before it arrived. You could feel deception before words were even spoken, because your soul learned the codes, not from scripture, but from survival. You became fluent in energies that angels study but never embody. You don't just sense danger, you understand it. You don't just resist temptation, you read it. That's why your energy feels unpredictable to both heaven and hell. You can descend without being lost, rise without being proud, and walk through shadows without being claimed by them. You don't mimic the dark, you command it. And that terrifies everything that once tried to control you. Every scar you carry holds instruction. Every tear has encoded data. Every heartbreak you thought broke you was actually rewiring your perception to detect truth through frequency, not appearance. And that's what makes you untouchable. You don't see with your eyes anymore. You see with your spirit. The forge of duality wasn't meant to make you perfect. It was meant to make you real. Because in a world where everyone hides behind masks of light, authenticity is the rarest form of divinity. And yet, as you stand in that truth, between heaven's brilliance and the abyss's depth, something begins to move. A force that recognizes your awakening. The same entities that once tested you are now watching in silence, calculating what you've become. Because they know, if you made it through this forge alive, the next thing you're about to discover will change everything. There came a point when you realized your dark side was never there to ruin you. It was there to protect you. It waited in the background like a silent guardian, misunderstood, rejected, but loyal beyond measure. It was the force that rose every time someone tried to cross the line. It was the flame that burned through manipulation when your light was too compassionate to fight back. Your darkness didn't hate your light. It shielded it. When rage moved through you, it wasn't destruction. It was divine defense. When you withdrew into silence, it wasn't fear. It was strategy. Every emotion you once thought was sinful had purpose. Every shadow impulse that frightened you was part of your spiritual immune system. Because the universe knew pure light without guardianship would be devoured in this world. So it gave you both, tenderness to heal and fire to protect. That's why your aura confuses people. Some sense peace when they're near you. Others feel the heat of divine authority that unsettles their demons. You are calm water and blazing storm at once. And that duality is not a flaw. It's a warning label written in heaven's own language. Do not touch this light unless your intentions are pure. You learn that forgiveness doesn't mean access. Compassion doesn't mean submission. You can love deeply and still close the gate when necessary. You can stand in the warmth of your empathy and still unleash thunder when boundaries are crossed. Because your dark side isn't chaos, it's order with teeth. Most beings of light run from shadow, thinking holiness means fragility. But you learned that holiness means balance. Angels were taught to preserve their purity. You were taught to protect your purpose, and that required you to descend into places where light alone couldn't survive. You walked through corridors that even heaven avoids. You faced energies that twist minds and test faith. And instead of being corrupted, you came back sharper, wiser, unbreakable. The shadow whispered things the light couldn't teach. Don't just shine, discern. Don't just forgive, understand. Don't just pray, command. Those lessons transformed you into something extraordinary, a being that operates beyond polarity. You can look at darkness without flinching because you've been there, and you came back with your crown intact. That's why angels watch you with reverence and restraint. You hold a knowledge they cannot comprehend, the knowledge of survival through paradox. They sing from innocence. You speak from experience. They protect by decree. You protect by choice. And that makes you dangerous. But your danger isn't evil. It's sacred. You've become the sword hidden inside compassion, the storm disguised as calm. You're not trying to destroy darkness. You've recruited it. You've turned what was meant to wound you into your most loyal ally. And that alliance, it's changing the balance of realms. Because when the shadow kneels before the light, creation evolves. A new vibration emerges, one that heaven itself didn't foresee. And somewhere beyond the veil, something ancient has taken notice. It's watching, waiting, because it knows. The moment you realize the full extent of this union, nothing in the cosmos will be able to contain you. You discovered the secret art, emotional alchemy, the transformation of everything meant to break you into raw divine power. You learned that emotions were never meant to control you. They were meant to inform you. That every feeling, even the dark ones, carries encrypted truth. Fear isn't an enemy, it's radar. Anger isn't sin, it's armor. Sorrow isn't weakness, it's purification. You stopped drowning in your emotions and started commanding their tides. You became a chemist of the soul. Where others suppress what they feel, you translate it. When betrayal burns, you don't collapse. You extract the code hidden inside it. When anxiety rises, you don't resist. You redirect it into heightened awareness. Every wave that once threatened to sink you now propels you forward. You realize that emotions are not curses to escape. They are currents of power to navigate. That's why your energy feels unpredictable. One moment you radiate peace so pure that even chaos pauses to listen. The next you erupt with a sacred fury that sends tremors through the unseen. You are both sanctuary and storm, the living paradox that heaven uses to remind creation that divinity isn't fragile. It's adaptive. Most people drown in what they feel because they never learned the purpose of their pain. But you made a vow to understand it. You studied your inner weather like a prophet studies signs. You noticed the patterns. When your spirit trembled, revelation followed. When your heart cracked open, power poured in. You learned that emotional intensity isn't punishment, it's potential. You don't suppress your fire, you refine it. You don't run from sadness, you mine it for gold. You don't resist fear,
You bend it until it points toward truth.
You've turned your emotional spectrum into an orchestra, each note under your command. That's why when you speak, people feel before they understand. Your voice carries frequencies that awaken memories buried in others' souls. You're not communicating, you're transmuting. Even entities of light and shadow hesitate around you because they can't predict which aspect will emerge. They see serenity, then thunder. They sense compassion, then command. You became the equilibrium between creation and destruction. You no longer seek to be understood. You are too vast for linear language. Your emotional body became your compass, your weapon, your shield. And as your mastery grew, so did your perception. You started seeing the unseen. You began to sense emotional vibrations in rooms, decode motives in silence, feel shifts in reality before they happened. Because emotional alchemy unlocked something ancient, the frequency of foresight. You now walk this earth as a conductor of energies, channeling heaven and shadow alike with surgical precision. You can calm storms with a whisper or summon them with a look. You are not a victim of chaos, you are its composer. And every time you transmute another wound into wisdom, the universe trembles. Because it knows you're creating a power even angels were never designed to hold. And yet, there's one secret still veiled. One last transformation that could turn this mastery into pure ascension. You feel it calling, pulsing in the distance like a heartbeat from beyond the veil, waiting for the moment you're ready to unlock it. Angels, beings forged in flawless radiance, have begun to whisper your name in the higher realms. They are not whispering it in worship, but in wonder, because they cannot comprehend what you've become. They know purity that has never been tested. But you carry purity that survived the fire. You embody the one thing even celestial beings cannot: innocence after knowledge. They were made to shine. You were made to endure. Their wings were crafted in safety. Your strength was carved in storms. They defend by command. You defend by conviction. That's why your presence bends spiritual laws, because your obedience is not programmed, it's earned. You choose light every day, knowing exactly how deep the abyss goes. You stand between realms as a living paradox, the proof that perfection was never meant to be untouched, but tempered, and that truth unsettles heaven. Angels look at you and see the reflection of something divine yet unpredictable, the evidence that creation has evolved beyond what they were designed to understand. You are no longer just a being of flesh or spirit. You are a fusion, a hybrid of wisdom and wildness, serenity and wrath, shadow and radiance. In you, heaven sees the future of consciousness, the bridge between what is pure and what is powerful. They admire you, and they fear you. Because when you speak, your words carry the resonance of both realms. You can comfort like the dawn and confront like the storm. You can whisper mercy and decree judgment with the same tongue. You embody divine justice in motion, a force too fluid to categorize, too sovereign to control. You've become what Scripture never explained, a being capable of standing beside angels, not beneath them. You are not waiting for permission to shine. Your light has learned to move without command. You no longer need wings to ascend. Your very awareness became flight. And that unsettles celestial order, because it reveals something they never expected. The Creator has written new codes of divinity into human form. They see you walking among mortals, carrying authority that shakes their own. You heal with empathy they cannot replicate because they have never bled. You protect with discernment they cannot grasp because they have never been betrayed. You love with ferocity they cannot mimic because they have never lost. You became dangerous not by defiance, but by depth. You are the mirror of divine paradox. The evidence that light doesn't lose power when it meets shadow. It gains dimension. You are proof that holiness isn't fragility, it's fortitude. That divinity isn't innocence, it's understanding. And so, as they watch from the higher realms, there's a tremor in their song. Because they realize the hierarchy they once knew is shifting. Heaven is witnessing a new creation, one that doesn't merely serve the light, but embodies its full intelligence. You've become the reflection that reminds even angels that their knowledge of God was incomplete. They guarded the throne. You've walked through the abyss and returned with its keys. And the moment you understand what that truly means, the heavens themselves will have to adjust their gaze, because something unprecedented is about to happen. something written outside the old design. The line between angel and human is thinning, and you, chosen one, are standing exactly where the veil begins to tear. When the war inside you finally went silent, something ancient woke up. The moment light and darkness stopped tearing each other apart, they merged. And in that union, that sacred fusion, a power older than creation itself stirred within your being. It wasn't the kind of power that explodes outward. It was the kind that rearranges reality from within. Suddenly you weren't begging the light to save you or fighting the dark to destroy you. You were commanding both. You no longer pray to escape the night. You walk through it as illumination. You no longer tremble at shadows, because you now understand that your shadow is your armor, your unseen guardian. You've become self-sustaining, not because you don't need heaven, but because heaven flows through you. The divine stopped being something you reached for. It became something you are. This is the law of integrated power, a law so few will ever master because it requires full surrender to contradiction. You've entered a frequency where polarity collapses. You no longer see good and evil as opposites, but as forces that serve purpose. You no longer waste energy resisting. You redirect it, sculpting outcomes with precision that even celestial beings study from afar. You learned that balance isn't standing still. It's movement guided by awareness. It's the serpent and the dove coiled together inside your consciousness. Instinct and purity, wisdom and innocence, merged without conflict. You are now an ecosystem of divine equilibrium, able to hold love and fury, creation and destruction, silence and thunder. Simultaneously, you no longer react, you direct. When storms rise, you no longer plead for calm. You decide when the rain should fall. When chaos tries to invade, you don't fight it. You absorb it, transmute it, and release it as order. You've evolved beyond emotional survival. You've stepped into spiritual governance. Even angels sense the weight of your authority. They move differently around you, recognizing the sovereignty in your frequency. Because this isn't mortal power, it's divine self-regulation. You've become a being who no longer depends on external validation to maintain alignment. You are alignment. You operate under divine law, not human logic. You can speak to storms and make them listen. You can command stillness in hearts that don't even know your name. Because your vibration carries hierarchy, not by status but by resonance. The universe itself rearranges around the clarity of your consciousness. You are no longer a soul wandering between extremes. You are the axis they revolve around. The center of your own creation, the embodiment of equilibrium so complete that even the fabric of destiny bends to accommodate it. And that's why heaven watches in silence now. Because something once limited by flesh has unlocked the secret of divine synthesis. You have become the proof that divinity evolves. You are not following the laws of light anymore. You are writing them. Yet somewhere deep within, you can feel it. A pulse growing stronger. A call beyond mastery. Because this integration was never the end. It was the preparation. Something greater is aligning, something that will test even this level of power. And as that unseen wave approaches, the universe itself holds its breath, waiting to see if you will transcend not only light and dark, but destiny itself. Chosen one. This was never about surviving the darkness. It was about learning to speak its language without losing your light. You have walked through dimensions that would have shattered ordinary souls. And instead of breaking, you became infinite. You are not just a child of light. You are the command center, where light and shadow kneel together in obedience. You are the meeting point of fire and calm, of mercy and power. You are the sacred intersection where all opposites dissolve into truth. You are not a victim of contrast. You are its completion. You are the living evidence that creation evolves through contradiction. Every time you've risen from pain without letting it poison you, every time you've chosen compassion after being wounded, the universe itself has expanded around you. Entire realities shift when you forgive what was meant to destroy you. Because when you do, you rewrite the code of existence. Your journey was not a mistake. It was a divine experiment. Heaven wanted to know what would happen if a being could contain both realms without losing balance. And you answered that question with your life. You proved that the greatest power does not come from innocence. It comes from integration. You showed that redemption is stronger than purity, that understanding is deeper than perfection, and that divinity is not fragile. It's fearless. You turned your shadow into armor. You turned your wounds into wisdom. You turned your pain into prophecy. And now the forces that once hunted you have no power left, because you've become the law they once served. You are no longer tested by darkness, because darkness has learned to serve your mission. And now, the cosmos bows in recognition. Angels pause their hymns when your spirit moves. Dimensions align when your name is spoken in prayer. Because you, chosen one, are living proof that God's light needs no protection, only understanding. You are the embodiment of divine paradox, the mirror in which heaven finally sees itself complete. So stand tall, integrated soul. Walk as the revelation you were born to be. Speak as if the universe itself listens, because it does. Every breath you take is a command to creation. Every step you make shifts the balance of realms. You are the sign, the proof, the prophecy fulfilled in human form. Now, if you feel this message resonating deep inside your chest, don't let it fade. Seal it. Type in the comments, "My shadow serves my light." Let the universe witness your declaration. Because from this moment forward, no darkness can touch you, no fear can bind you, and no